welcome to Old Ass Movie Reviews. I'm Scott with Dave, and it is that time of year again where we break out the classic horror, the bad horror, the B movies, the good ones, the scary ones, the funny ones. But today we're taking it all the way back to Universal's 1931 Frankenstein.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Such a good movie.
I grew up watching this movie, and I think that was the last time I saw it as a kid. And I remember,
really?
I haven't seen this in forever. And I'm going to go ahead and say this real quick. I got the Blu-ray set off Amazon of Universal Monsters movies. It's 8 movies. They've all been restored in high definition, full of behind the scenes interviews and all kinds of stuff. This is a brilliant transfer. It's like, wow, I'm watching a movie that's almost 100 years old and it's crystal clear, and it's just it looks amazing. So that is definitely worth a look if you are a connoisseur of classic cinema. So yeah, dude, I like this movie, but it also makes me regret the fact I've never read the book.
Yeah, this is nothing like the book, man.
That's my understanding.
Take this movie, and the only thing that's in common with the book is the name Frankenstein. That's really about it. And some crazy guy created a monster. That's it. Those are like the only 2 things that really are kind of in sync with each other.
Yeah.
I noticed I like this movie. I've always liked this movie. I've always loved this movie as a kid. The miniatures in this are freaking beyond fantastic, especially for 1931. But what I noticed the other night when I was watching this, for really the first time, because I was really, because we are doing this podcast, I was really looking at stuff like the backgrounds, the foregrounds, costumes. And it's funny that because I'm looking at the costumes, I just noticed that there's a note in here, and that's why I was chuckling at one point, that in the notes, there's, according to the DVD commentary for this film, director James Wall intended this film to take place in an alternate universe and therefore freely mixed 19th century and 1930s technology, hair, and fashions. Now, as a little kid growing up, and as a young adult watching this, I always thought, I always thought it was weird. Like, this is a 19th century story. It's being told almost like a 19th century story. Like a lot of the tech is out of place, even for the 30s. And then you see some of the costumes, and I just assumed like these guys in Hollywood didn't know what Europeans were dressed like. And then I was like thinking like that's just like some really strange choices. Reading that, it all falls into line. Like, oh shit, that wasn't supposed to be Earth of 1931 that we know. That was an Earth of 1931 that somebody else knew, like of a side mirror universe. And that clears up a lot of crap for me. Let me tell you.
When I was watching it,
I am. That cleared up a whole lot of crap.
When I was watching, and I had a feature on the Blu-ray that was kind of like the show that used to come on VH1, pop-up video. You'd be watching, and little tidbits would pop up on this movie. And it does make a comment about the director said that he did not want to set it back in the 1800s. He wanted it to feel more modern. So he mixed things to make it more modern or closer to this time. So that's probably, it's along the lines of that. And I just find that interesting like that. One of the things I thought was cool, a random thing that I did not know, that the laboratory set is also the same one in Young Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
I thought we talked about that when we did Young Frankenstein.
If we probably did, and that was a long time ago, and I'm getting old.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, you are getting old. I, on the other hand, am getting much younger every day. I'm getting younger. My skin is getting less wrinkly, and my hair is growing, as you can tell.
So I thought that was really cool that Mel Brooks had hired the set designer and everything and brought all that. I thought that was really neat that they did that. But on the laboratory itself, it took 29 people to operate that for the filming of that scene.
No kidding.
Yeah. So the
Holy
budget, did you
crap.
see the budget on this movie?
No, I imagine it was really high budget for the time.
Holy crap. I think 262,000 or something like that. Yeah.
Holy God.
Yeah. Yeah. It was
That's a
for
ton of bread, folks.
for a
That's
movie they didn't think was going to work. At least Karloff did not think. Karloff was afraid he was going to ruin his career, which I
yeah.
find amazing.
I had read that one time before.
Yeah.
When they mention it, and then later on, he says the monster was the best friend I ever had.
Yes.
That
Yes.
basically created Karloff.
It created Karloff and
Yeah.
ushered in an era of horror movies that we still get to this day. And
Crazy.
what's cool about this movie, this is a very tame movie by today's standards.
Oh yeah.
So your kids can watch it and everything, but at the time it came out, it was actually censored. The little girl drowning was cut out. There's some blasphemous dialogue of Dr. Frankenstein saying he is God, and like, oh, we got to cut that out. I think theaters in Kansas wouldn't even show it.
I heard, I have read, and I don't know how true this is, but I imagine it could be true that in some theaters, when the monster comes out of the shadows and Karloff turns, see him for the first time, that women fainted.
I believe it because I was talking to. I was talking about that. No, that's something that did pop up on there was that people had fainted, but when I think about it, it's like, oh, this is ridiculous. This thing is so tame. It is to us because of what we grew up with. But cinema, not everybody was. Yes, there was movies. They were silent. The sound was coming in now, and there weren't horror movies. There wasn't anything like this.
No.
So to see that on screen, and it was taking the amount of makeup that Karloff was put under. It was like 6 hours a day. It weighed 50 pounds, his whole getup. So
my God. I knew it was heavy. I didn't realize it was that heavy.
Yeah, the director worked that poor man to death. He actually had to get executives involved to get him down to a 12-hour workday because they were overworking everybody on that set. No. This is before the unions, I guess.
Yeah,
so, obviously. So, but yeah, it's they also, I don't know where I was going with this, but we'd talked about it being censored, and of course now all of that stuff is back in there.
Yeah.
But some changes to the movie from the screenplay that I read about while I was watching this was originally Dr. Frankenstein died. So, but they wanted a happy ending and put that in there. And I thought that ending felt so tacked on with him being alive instead of dying from the windmill.
You say that, and now I'm having a Mandela effect.
Uh-oh.
Because as a kid, I seem to recall him dying in that. Like watching it on Sir Graves Ghastly and the Late Show, I
always thought he died.
Recall him dying with the monster. Wow, that's weird. I haven't thought about that in years. But yeah, because I was watching it the other night, and when he's alive, I'm like, I sure hope he's alive. And then when he's alive, I was like, that doesn't seem right, though. Like,
no.
I wonder if I saw like one of the old clips, like if they were still renting out the old original cuts to the.
It probably was. It probably was.
7 horror movies and stuff. That's crazy. The little girl drowning. Now you said they censored that. Was that him throwing her in the water, or was there an extended scene where they're showing her splashing around? And
well, see, that's just it, because what I watched has the scene is like that's what they cut out, but I think it was just her splashing. And it was just so horrific, and they really don't even show that. Yeah, and it's still horrific.
Yeah, but he doesn't mean to. I mean, he literally the character turns around and starts looking around for help.
Yeah, and I also had one of the things that came up, the whole thing of mixing up the brains. That was an add-on to the story because that's not how Mary Shelley had written that.
No.
So, and I think this is why I want to read Shelley's book, the original, of course, is because it sounds like she was trying to find a way to make the monster for the audience to be sympathetic with the monster.
Oh yeah, you were way more sympathetic in the book with
Good.
the monster than you are with the creator. But then the monster does something horrendous that you're like, okay, I can't be on your side anymore. And you're both monsters.
Yeah.
Had in the book and even in this movie, had Frankenstein treated it like better, you'd have been fine. I still think the Hunchback deserved exactly what he got.
He did. Let's talk about that actor.
Yeah.
Wow. Renfield again.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, and he went on to do so many of these movies.
Was Dracula after Dracula was after this? Dracula was 32?
I think so. I think Dracula's 32.
Okay,
yeah.
So they had Frankenstein, which kicked it off. Dracula, which was another masterpiece.
Yes.
The guy who played, I was looking at that guy and thinking, man, he looks familiar. I know I've seen him other stuff.
Was the Dr. Van Helsing?
About him being Renfield. I was like, oh shit, yeah. Perfect. Yeah, that guy's a good actor. He played that little hunchback totally well.
Yeah, now help me out here. Why did I always think the assistant's name was Igor? Is that because of Young Frankenstein?
Not just that, but I think in Bride of Frankenstein, the hunchback.
Maybe that's where I'm getting it, because I was like, Fritz. Fritz. What is a Fritz?
For me, the Bride of Frankenstein is better than this one. And for a couple of reasons, whenever you watch it, I'll
be watching it really soon.
Yeah,
why don't we just roll into it?
Great. I really do want to know your opinion on Bride of Frankenstein.
I want to see it.
Some people don't like it as much, and other people, are like, whatever. It's a 1932 or whatever year it came out. I think they did it almost like right away.
Right,
if I'm not mistaken. But it starts out with Mary Shelley telling the story.
Oh, very cool.
And then I just want you to see if you can find out who that actress was that plays Mary Shelley.
Okay. All right.
Pick up on it. But the guy who played Igor or Fritz, when he played, what's his name again?
Renfield.
Renfield. Thank you. When he plays Renfield, and then you see him in this, you're like, holy cow. Like I knew who, like I seen him. I'm like, man, he looks familiar.
Yeah.
And then you see him as Renfield, and you're like, holy crap, this guy just could do anything. He played insane really well.
Yeah, he did.
Played insane really well.
He did.
The guy who plays Harry Frankenstein, because Victor is the brother or cousin or friend.
And I was like, what the hell? Yeah, there was some weird choices.
It's things like that. But what I love about this movie,
I was like,
I like how they're all in like Transylvania or Germany or the Bavarian Alps, and the guy's talking with a very British accent. Get me my wine, kind of thing. The dad and everybody else is speaking with British accents. They're like, at least fake a German accent. It's 1931. They're already in South America taking over. But the backgrounds, when you're in the real world, and when I say real world, I'm talking about the other characters living their life of a normal life. The villagers are living a normal life. It's very straight on, parallel lines up and down.
Mm-hmm.
Other lines.
Wow, that's
right. You go into Victor Frankenstein's castle, and as you're looking at Victor Frankenstein, everything is tilted.
Yes.
Everything is tilted, and everything is in heavy shadows.
Yes.
The lighting is very stark, very drastic. You could freeze a panel there, and it is a comic book panel. It is.
Yes, it is.
If you're into comic books and you want to learn how to be a comic book artist, I recommend Jack Kirby, Steve Ditko, and any of the old Universal monster movies. You can freeze a frame and look at how they were setting up. These directors were brilliant. This guy might have been a slave-driving son of a bitch,
but he was brilliant. The cinematographer, at least.
The cinematographer. Like there was a scene with the doctor, Crazy Frankenstein, was talking to the good scientist that I think was also Van Helsing in Dracula.
I think you're right.
Guy. But he's talking to him, and there's a scene where Frankenstein is talking, and the background is all tilted. All the lines, the wall windows, the shadows are all just these really harsh lines, and it really builds on his insanity. Like, you walk out of there, well, if they would have been able to drag him out of there, he probably would have went, shit, this is great. And there's an old comedy called um, Transylvania 65000
Yes.
with Jeff Goldblum. And there's a scene where this doctor goes into his laboratory. And when he goes into the laboratory, he's totally insane and his hair's up and he's ah ha ha ha. But you drag him out of the laboratory and he like slicks back his hair and he's like, hey, how you guys doing? What's going on? It's and I
get the joke.
Like if you could drag Dr. Frankenstein out of that castle, he'd have been doing that. He'd be like, ha ha ha. Well, hey, hi fellas, you
That's
want
exactly how he was.
You drink water. Yeah.
By the end of the movie, he is that. It's like, you created this.
Yeah. How are you trying to ignore it?
Such a great story.
I only have one problem. There's only one, and this is a small problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure it was probably edited out to fix this problem or whatever. But there's a scene where the villagers are all going to the Burgermeister, and they're all, we got to kill somebody. And I'm going to hit you with the joke later, but right now I just want to talk about they find the little girl. The little girl's dead. The little girl's dead. And they instantly say she's been murdered.
I know.
Well, there's no parents around. They live by a lake. This little girl's could have gone off on her own and just drowned. I hate to say it, but things like that happen. But they instantly go with there's a murder. And they know what did it. They know there's a monster. But nobody saw the monster. Nobody knows about the monster. So I was like, how did they make that leap? Like, I
know
they went from A to Z and jumped all the other letters.
This is a short movie at 110 minutes, I think, something like that. So it's not super long, and I feel they cut a lot out, or it feels incredibly rushed in spots. It's like, how in the hell did they go from, oh, she's dead, we're going to go lynch the monster? How did you know it was anybody going to ask a question? Let's get Henry for the mountains. What?
I just like whenever they all have torches. You're like, what? I texted you.
Where did they come from?
Where the hell they get all the torches?
I know. And now,
guy in the street corner just handing out torches.
Did he just have barrels lined up?
Getting ready. Just handing out the torches.
They're there. In case there's a monster murder in that village, they must have the lynching torches ready.
Every barbarian town to this day has a street corner with all the torches, the hose, the picks,
the pitchforks,
the pitchforks. You're all ready to go. If there's a monster in this town, we got
we're
you
covered.
We got you ready. We're good. We're gonna go.
And I never caught that as a child, but watching that was the first thing I noticed. Is like, man, y'all made a hell of a leap to go kill this thing.
Last night was literally the first time I caught either of those. Like, how did you guys? What? Like, I was gonna rewind it and go, did I miss something? I'm like, no, I had. That's what I've seen 100 times. And then all of a sudden they just had the torches, and that's when I texted you. It's like, where the hell did they get the torches? But other than that, man, this movie's really well done. I like the introduction by Carl Lamel, who comes out at the very beginning of the movie, which is a thing that they did back then.
Mm-hmm.
And in some cases, I think you could still do this, depending on the type of horror movie or the type of scary movie that you're doing. You could still have like the production guy or the producer or one of the big names come out and do an introduction. I thought it was kind of neat. I still think it's neat. I'd like to see somebody kind of retro that back a little bit.
That would be cool. I like the idea. I did read they did that because they wanted to warn audiences. And again, it's like I said, we look at it as like, what? But there had never been anything seen like that. No. That would have scared the living crap out of me if I was a kid and saw that. I mean, movies themselves were something new and fascinating. And, well, I mean, not super new, but enough to, it's pretty wild. Pretty damn wild, man.
Yeah.
And look what it spawned. It's I love going back to the classics because they're not relying on, I mean, there's jump scares in the old ones, but they don't, of course, it's not necessarily easy to do it well, but they don't rely on gore and flashy effects to freak you out.
Right.
It's
Right.
more of a psychological get under your skin and pick and dig. And I
And it
love
was
these
all
old
clear.
movies. Yeah.
They made you think about the monster. Like,
Hmm.
why is that monster doing that? They made you think about Dracula. Why is Dracula is he really just a bastard, or is he really in
Yeah.
love with the woman?
Taking the kills off screen and everything else puts it all in your mind. And
Yeah, makes
we
it
we
worse.
may it does, because I can go ask anybody who's ever watched Texas Chainsaw Massacre and say, hey, was that a graphic movie? Was that gross? And they're like, oh, it's the most horrible thing ever. No, almost everything happens off screen, but your
Yeah.
brain fills it in. And it's like Toby Hooper took this style and just, here you go.
Well, one of the first people to do that was Hitchcock.
Yes.
Take the kills off screen, not show the
Hmm.
actual murder, the blood running down the tub.
Yes. Yeah. With Hitchcock and
Psycho,
Psycho.
you
Yes.
never actually see the kill.
No.
There's no gore. You just see the blood going down the drain. So it's always off, like you said. It's always in the head. But I love the set designs in this. Every set design, even when they're in the mountains and they're going after the Frankenstein monster.
Yeah.
Um, if you look up in the sky, you can tell that's a drop. You can
Oh,
tell
yeah.
it's a drop
But
cloth.
it's well done. It's
But
so
I'm
well
looking
done.
at it and I'm like, you know what? If you tried to make that look perfect, let's say some jerk decided, hey, I'm gonna fix that because that's wrong, and they went in with computer animated, computer generated, and did a nice background and made it look perfect. It wouldn't look right. That would be way distracting. But that drop cloth was perfect.
Practical works every
Yep.
time.
Yep.
It may not always look as flashy, but in
Yeah.
20 years, you'll still watch it, whereas the flashy CGI looks horrible.
Usually looks aged a lot.
Yeah.
Very aged.
Yeah.
I want to go over something real quick.
Yep.
There was one little trivia during production. There was some concern that the 7-year-old Marilyn Harris, who played
Hmm.
Maria, the little girl thrown in the lake by the monster, would be overly frightened by the sight of
Oh,
Boris
yeah.
Karloff in costume and makeup when he came to shoot the scene. When the cast was assembled to travel to the location, Harris ran from her car directly up to Karloff, who was in full makeup and costume, took his hand and asked, "May I drive with you?" Delighted and in typical Karloff fashion, he responded, "Would you, darling?" She then rode to the location with the monster. How sweet of a guy does Karloff have to be in reality to be
Hmm.
full costume? This little girl's never seen him.
She
She
could
has
sense
no
that he was a good
idea,
person. Yeah.
but she knew who Boris Karloff was. She probably met him.
Yeah.
And but whenever she's seen him, she just went up and how sweet of a guy is that? That a
Hmm.
kid instantly knows, like, this guy, I can trust this guy. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
Man, that just makes my heart go like today my heart grew 4 sizes too large.
I want to. Yeah, that's a great story, and she plays that so well. I think
Yeah,
what we're seeing in her eyes is her.
yeah,
She's really fascinating. So that's what made her scene so real. I
yeah,
had to
yeah.
chuckle a little bit, and I don't know if Thomas Smith did this when we shot the movie Backwoods, but I have a
Uh,
scene when I'm in full monster makeup and I have flowers, and I was like, oh, wow, all this time I just realized I wish I would have known you pulled this from Frankenstein.
oh no, that's great. That's
Yeah.
great.
So, but it made me think of that. It's like, oh, wait, hey, damn, but
Wait a minute,
Karloff, freaking amazing, dude. Um,
isn't he? Just in anything.
I was I he leaves me speechless. I
Yeah,
just watched him bring that creature to life, and say so much without saying a word.
yeah. With only a that's all he did.
Yeah.
Crazy. Um,
Phenomenal
re-
actor.
real quick before we go, um, Colin Clive was Henry Frankenstein. Henry Frankenstein.
Ah, yeah.
May Clark was Elizabeth.
The grapefruit
Boris,
lady.
Boris Karloff, the grapefruit. You know what? I think you're right. I think that is her.
That's one of the things that popped up
We're gonna
when I was
have
watching.
we are gonna
We do
have
have to go
redo
back.
that. We're gonna have to redo that movie. Um,
Yes.
well, when we do that movie, we'll talk about her again, and then you'll know
Yes.
what movie we did. Anyway, Boris Karloff as the monster. Did you happen to catch whenever the credits are rolling in the very beginning of the movie?
Mm-hmm.
They
There's a
say the
question mark.
monster, and there's a question
Yeah.
mark.
Yeah.
I just thought that was fantastic. They waited to give Boris Karloff's name until the end of the movie.
Yeah.
They never did that back then. That just wasn't done.
Well, one of the things and thank you for mentioning that, because that's one of the things I noticed when the credits came up at the end again, and it said the cast that's worth repeating or whatever, and it's like, you know what?
Worth a damn.
I thought that was nice. It's like, you know what? Cool. Good on you. Those guys, they went and they did a movie that was just out of the norm and with a big freaking budget, and it shows. Right. Wow, that kind of money in the 30s. Holy crap.
And like you said, this was a movie nobody thought was going to make anything. George Lucas didn't think Star Wars. Here's the Star Wars reference, folks, if you're keeping track. George Lucas didn't think Star Wars was going to make any money. Most of his friends didn't think it was going to make any money. They thought he was going to lose money. He was in Hawaii on vacation when it opened, and people called him up and said, dude, you need to get your ass back to Cali because this is out of control. And he's like, what do you mean? This, I would say, was probably comparable.
Yeah.
As Dracula would also be comparable to Star Wars or an Empire. That's how big these movies were. These guys became movie stars because of these movies. That's just crazy to me. Like to think, when you put it in a perspective that I can understand, that's what I understand. That was that time's Avatar for anybody who's out there trying to figure it out. Think of Avatar, the very first Avatar, how big and popular that movie was. That was this movie at the time. Everybody thought it was going to lose money. It made money. Avatar made money. This made money. And everybody's a star. You know? That to me is just nuts.
Yeah.
I'll go back to the names real quick, just so, because I like to give anybody who's worth giving, I give. John Bowles was Victor Montz. There's the Victor.
There's the Victor. I know.
Wrong guy. Writer must have never read Mary Shelley. Edward Van Sloan played Dr. Waldman. Frederick Kerr was Baron von Frankenstein. Dwight Fry, there he is, as Fritz.
Yeah.
Lionel Belmore was the Burgermeister. And of course, Marilyn Harris was the little girl. And then I'm going to leave all the other ones just uncredited because I ain't got all day.
One of the things that I remembered when I watched this is a few years back, Universal had the bright idea to reboot their monsters. And I get it. They're looking, it's like, hey, what's our catalog? What are we famous for? We're famous for a big deal here. Frankenstein, Dracula, Wolfman, So the idea to reboot, and while I will sing the praises of Tom Cruise all day long, using him to relaunch your Universal monsters was not the right call, because these are not action movies. Bottom line. When they did The Mummy, it's not a bad flick, but it's a Tom Cruise action flick. It's not this. I actually really enjoy it as a Tom Cruise movie. So
if you put Tom Cruise in a movie, he's going to jump something. He's going to blow something.
I'm going to watch it. I'm going to freaking watch it.
Yeah, you're going to watch it because you want to see it.
I'm going to watch. Yes.
That's why I think the original Mummy trilogy was so successful.
It was a little closer.
At least the first two of the three were really good. They were. I think they were on to something then.
They were because when we reviewed those, and that's one of the things that I noticed is how close Karloff's Mummy is to the Brendan Fraser Mummy. It's like,
oddly enough, you don't see it unless you watch them side by side.
But they're there, man.
You just watch Brendan Fraser's, you're like, it's nothing like that. But if you watch them side by side, you're like, holy crap, that writer pulled from here. He pulled that.
Yes.
That's brilliant. They did
and that's why it worked.
Job. And I think what happened was, if they would have followed along those lines, even if you would have put Brendan Fraser, if you would just said, fuck it, we're putting Brendan Fraser in every one of these movies and give him the Frankenstein monster movie, the vampire, Dracula movie. Like it could have just been his character having to fight all these classic monsters in the time period.
Yeah.
I think they fumbled bad. They dropped the
They
ball
did.
and and I don't know what it is with executives. Instead of thinking,
They're thinking money. They don't understand. They're not the artists. They're not the fans. They're not the.
Yeah, they need to get some creative take in there. And I understand not everybody that's creative is actually super good at being creative. Some people have to be told, this is my idea, and then they're creative with that. Some people can't just be creative. We've seen it in Hollywood for the last 15 years. There's a lot of bad writers there, and now they're all on strike. That's a whole nother subject, I understand, but there's a lot of good writers that are on strike right now that are probably looking at the other bad writers going, why am I striking for you? I would be.
Oh, I'm sure I would feel that way.
I'd be ticked off at this point, but that's me. But there's a lot of good writers out there that could have pulled it off. And I think if they go that route, if they do decide to do another Brendan Fraser movie that was getting kind of teased out there for a little while, because he made a joke one time. If somebody asked him if they offered it, would you do it? He's like, you got a script? He's like, I love that character. I would.
He's a big deal now. So after the Academy Award wins, I love seeing him make his way back. I think we could continue. He could be Universal's. He could be to Universal what Christopher Lee and Cushing are to Hammer. So yeah,
exactly. And I think had they done it right at the time, at about that time, they could have pulled him in as Indiana Jones.
Yeah,
they could have.
They missed an opportunity on that.
I think they missed a big opportunity. But again, like you said, Christopher Lee, he could be, he could be their guy.
Yeah.
And for him to be able to go fight all the different monsters or be put in a situation where he's helping somebody, like he's the Van Helsing of that.
Oh, I'd see him as Van Helsing. Absolutely.
And I'm not even calling him a Van Helsing, but like he could still play that character, Rick.
Yeah.
But be like the equivalent of a Van Helsing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that would, because, he's got all the knowledge. He's got the other protector. He's got his wife, so they can figure out where all these monsters are coming from and go like, holy crap, what did we do? Like because they did this, they did, it all, domino effect.
I want to see Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz back together as a duo. Good. They're wonderful together.
So good together. So good together. But back to this movie, I think.
Sorry, we got sidetracked.
We always do, and I started the sidetrack. But I would like to see them do something like this. And these movies were just so ahead of their time.
Yes.
And they were in your head, and people made a big deal about them back then, and still do. I mean, there are people who will buy these dolls. I mean, I have a Mego action figure that came out a few years ago of Dracula. I saw it and I was like, mine. That's mine. I can't find it now. I can't find any Frankensteins. I can't find any Wolfmans. I know they made them. Can't find them.
Yeah.
But if I ever see them, they're going to be mine because Universal monsters are my big deal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So there you go, folks. Dave and I both highly recommend the original Frankenstein, 1931. Check it out. Enjoy. We're coming back with more Universal Monsters. So catch you next week. Thank you for watching. Yes.
Don't forget to hit the like button, the subscribe button, the share button. Share us around. Pour us out. We don't care. We're easy to get along with.
Easy like a Sunday morning. Okay.
It helps.
Sorry.
It helps with the algorithm, supposedly. I don't know if there's any.
Allegedly, some alien AI shit. Anyway,
we've got a couple of videos that have hit like pretty big numbers. I mean, for us, big numbers. 7,000 for The Day the Earth Stood Still, and
no idea why.
600 for The Beast.
Yeah,
I mean, 600 I think is our next one for The Beast, or 700.
Something like that. Yeah,
something like that. Those are big numbers for us. I mean, we're just
no idea what happened.
Smokes doing this for fun. We don't. If there was only 5 people watching, we'd still be doing it.
Yeah,
because we like to talk.
Yeah. So, if you like us, And if you don't, still hit the like, the share, the subscribe, and check us out on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and anywhere you listen to your podcast. Catch you next week.
Cheers.